Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the City Council Urban Affairs Committee meeting to order. We have a few items on our agenda, and I think it's going to be a long one. We've killed a few trees, but I want to get started. We have 3 items on our agenda. I'm going to take them out of order for how they are on here. We're going to start with Sassaville Way, and then I was going to hold on Red Spring because of Councilor Orem, but he's not here, so we'll take that second, and then the retirement community on Robin Hill last, on the advice of council. So I'm going to start with order number 23-108-941, the proposed amendment to City Code Chapter 650 zoning by adding a new section to create a Sassaville Way residential overlay district. So for this order, we have an email from Solicitor Grossfield responding to my questions of the validity of the zoning amendment that was brought up at the planning board meeting, specifically for the retirement community overlay district. I will read that email. I'm writing to follow up on your question regarding the proposed Sassaville Way residential overlay district zoning amendments based on the documentation provided by the petitioners in connection with the item. In my opinion, the petition is presented by both the individual owner of land that would be affected by the zoning change and the prospective purchaser, and the initiation of the zoning amendment complies with applicable requirements of Master General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5. We also have a letter provided by Attorney Cashman from Timothy Nelson, the Senior Manager at Boston Scientific. That letter I'm writing on behalf of Boston Scientific Corporation, the owner of that certain property located off of Sassaville Way, Marlborough, Massachusetts, Assessor's Map and Parcel 2923, an affiliate of Trammell Crow Company. TCC is under contract to purchase the property from the owner, and on July 12th, 2023, filed the proposed amendment with the City Council. On behalf of owner, I hereby confirm that owner authorized, joined with, and supported TCC to act as the applicant and take all actions of an applicant in connection with the proposed amendment. This authorization includes the right of TCC to employ such attorneys and consultants as it deems advisable in connection with any proceedings before the City Council or any applicable proceedings relating to the proposed amendment or any project enabled thereby. Signed, very truly yours, Timothy Nelson, Senior Manager, Facilities, Real Estate, Environmental Health and Safety of Boston Scientific. We have a letter from the solicitor dated November 29th with the blue line changes to the original document based on the comments and the votes at the Urban Affairs November 15th committee meeting. I believe, did everyone get copies of that same document that's now in red and blue?
Yes.
Okay. We have a clean copy of the edited document. We have an email from the solicitor dated today with additional edits to the overlay district document. And at this point in time, I believe I read the letter from the planning board giving their neutral recommendation at the November 15th meeting, so I will not read that again, but the council does all have that letter. We will have the information on the screen to go through if there's anything the petitioner would like to add before we just go back through quickly this document with the changes edited from our last meeting.
Okay, only just to reiterate that William Pizzoni, for the developer, that we heard at our first meeting for the City Council the issues relative to the sensitivity of the area and the Foot Meadow and the trout stream, and also the abutters being nearby. We pulled as much of the projects as we could out of that area. We don't impact it. We've had an ANRAD completed and voted on by the Concom to determine that we're not within that 200 feet or within the wetlands. And we feel that we've addressed many, if not all, of the issues that were raised. When we moved the project, more to the left and up, we ended up reducing the size of the buildings that weren't residential to make sure that they would all fit on there. And we reconfigured the project and put the undisturbed area as shown on the last plan, where basically you're getting close to between 45 and 50% of the site preserved as in its natural state. And with the changes that we made over the past week, talking with the Site Plan Review Committee, we moved that, the setback from Sassaville Way to 150 feet. From Blazewood, I'm sorry. To 150 feet rather than the 200, in order to be able to build what we're going to need to be able to build for infrastructure there to support the quality project that we want to build and to be able to put the enhancements in to protect the environment. The site plan review people looked at it as if it was a limited industrial site, and that, you know, we should be several hundred feet away or 250 feet away. Part of the reason in limited industrial sites you have that setback is because you have lots of bays, lots of truck traffic, there's lots of noise, and usually it's plateaued and it's a sea of pavement in that area. We are not doing that. We're really sculpting this project into the side of the lot and making sure that we repurpose it. And actually, when we're done, we have a planning plan that we've shown you, and we're going to stand by, where we replant a lot of the area along the rail trail, so that's even more coverage than the 50% that we're saving. And within the project, we have a high-density planning program. We changed it to special permit requirement, as you know, and I believe that that's a good move for everybody, because once we get into the granular aspects of developing the project, we're going to be able to tell you what we can do, what we can't do, what the expense is, how it's going to impact the rest of the project. I think we've got a fair compromise for everybody concerned here. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, President.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly read the solicitor's letter. Dear honorable councilors, in connection with the above referenced order enclosed, please find an updated draft of the zoning ordinance amendments in advance of tomorrow's Committee on Urban Affairs and Housing. As requested, the petitioners and I worked to incorporate the changes discussed at the November 15th committee meeting. For reference, the PDF version is a red line showing changes incorporated on this new document compared to the version submitted by the petitioners on 11/7/23 and reviewed at the November 15th, 2023 committee meeting. I understand consideration of certain policy decisions remain open. In other words, the residential buffer at subsection F3(2) with regard to the affordable housing requirement at subsection E. This draft applies the requirements of subsection 650.26 to the overlay district. If the committee seeks to incorporate a requirement different from what section 650.26 requires in its current form, or if section 650.26 is modified in the future, edits can be made to specify in the subsection. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Jason Grossfield, City Solicitor. So we have, for the benefit of the audience and people that may be watching at home, the version on the screen. Councilors have a copy. I made notes on my, it's actually blue lined from the solicitor, so I'm going to go through it, but I think the only difference is that it seems like the scratch outs are in red instead of in blue. So the solicitor had made a quick change into number 1, chapter 650 is entitled Special Districts, Overlays, and Special Requirements by inserting a new section 650.39A and deleting or such other numbering as deemed appropriate. So it's 650.39A Sassaville Way. We added in mixed use multifamily housing in the purpose and objectives in number 2. Again, it's multifamily. It says within the SWR overlay district, 1 mixed-use development shall be permitted, which shall require a special permit and site plan review. I think some of these we had gone over at the last meeting. Number 3 is for the purposes of section 650.39A, the new language is existing at the passage of this ordinance, which, it's the zoning map, the SWR overlay district is located adjacent to Sassaville Way as indicated on the zoning map existing at the passage of this ordinance, with properties include the following parcels of land identified by the assessor's map on parcel 2923. The authority of the permit granting authority, number B, reads now, number 1, in all instances, a development which proceeds under the overlay district is subject to administrative site plan, and the information about site plan approval by the city council is gone. It's the voting threshold for a special permit now reads, shall be determined in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, subsection 9. And I did ask the solicitor about this because I was concerned that it was vague and not specific, and his comments were that this is specific to the special permit, will be determined under Chapter 40A, and by the time a special permit came to the council, that could change. It could remain the same, but whatever is in effect at that time would cover that. Number 2, a special permit may waive to modify any of the dimensional and parking requirements, and site plan review was deleted upon the finding that to do so will enhance the overall design. Number D1, multifamily dwelling as part of a mixed-use development, provided that the total number of dwelling units shall not exceed 286, and that was gone over at the last meeting. In C, it now reads, any business use as categorized under Chapter 650-17 of the zoning ordinance, provided that said facilities are in aggregate less than 8,000 square feet of floor area, and that such business use is limited to the following. Number 1, a consumer service establishment complementary to the principal use. Number 2, a restaurant serving food indoors or outdoors, or a cafe with or without table service, including outside seating, or a brew pub. And we have deleted the health, sports, and fitness club in that section. Number D is a health, sports, and fitness club related facilities, and the new addition is for residents and guests of residents as accessory to the multifamily dwelling. We added in E, accessory solar and other alternative energy installations, including but not limited to solar photovoltaic systems, and added at the end that it's subject to 650-25 of the zoning ordinance. Number 2, the foregoing subsections notwithstanding, the uses set forth as follows are expressly prohibited. In the SWR overlay district, any industrial uses as categorized under 650-17 of the zoning ordinance, which are permitted by underlying zoning, shall not be allowed in the SWR district after a granting of a building permit for a development that has received a special permit. So there's a whole lot of scratch out there, and it just becomes a simple sentence. Letter E, affordable housing. So this one now reads, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in 650-26 of the zoning ordinance, all special permits granted to applicants to construct multifamily dwellings, including a mixed-use development containing a multifamily dwelling use, shall be subject to the provisions of 650-26 of the zoning ordinance. And for this, I will refer to the solicitor's email from today, where he is suggesting an addition. Sorry, the wrong note there. An addition of language, so it would read, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in 650-26 of the zoning ordinance or any amendment thereof, all special permits granted to applicants to construct multifamily dwellings, including a mixed-use development containing a multifamily dwelling use, shall be subject to the provisions of 650-26 of the zoning ordinance as adopted and in effect as of November 30th, 2023, which is today's date. So assuming anything might get changed on Monday, it would be the existing, all of the existing section 650-26. I think we had had a discussion and a vote. The original had 12. It had said, made available to affordable homes to home buyers or renters shall be 12% with respect to developments of 20 or more. We took a vote. I had said current rules are 15. There was a vote to go back to 12, which didn't carry, so I had said it would be 15, I believe, in what was read in the minutes. The solicitor felt this was a better language than having a percentage, to just have it clean, and that everything in 650-26 would be covered, rather than if we just said 15% or 12%, how about all the rest of the language that's there? Can they buy out? Can they do somewhere else? Do they have to meet the affordable, all of the stuff that's there? So everybody okay with the solicitor's change? Did I see that you were going to say something? No. Oh, yes? Do you have a comment?
I guess we just wanted to clarify, because this comment came over late in the day today. We want to make sure we understood it, the intent of it, which I'm hearing is to make a special permit under this overlay subject to the affordable housing ordinance in effect today.
Correct.
Regardless of how it may change between today and a special permit application.
Correct.
But all of it, including...
All of it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, and then the next change is in F1, we talked about this. It's consists of one or more lots on 23 acres. Number 3 had some discussion at the meeting. So the original of this was minimum side and rear yard measurement shall be no less than 50 feet, and minimum front yard measurement shall be no less than 50 feet for any lot wholly located within boundaries of a SWR overlay district, except that for any business use, the minimum front yard measurement shall be no less than 25 feet. Then there was a request by Mr. DePercio to add in some language. We agreed to some of it. There was still the protection of the minimum yard measurement shall be no less than 200 feet from an existing improved family lot. And the solicitor has, in the next part that I'll read, number 2, no portion of any multifamily building shall be located less than 150 feet from any portion of a single-family dwelling located outside the SWR overlay district existing as of the effective date of this section 650-39A, measured in a straight line from any point of a multifamily building within the SWR overlay district to any point of a single-family dwelling outside of the SWR overlay district existing as of the effective date of this section, without regard to any subsequent relocation or demolition of such dwelling. And 3, that there shall be no disturbance of land within the riverfront area as defined in Master General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, in effect as of the effective date of this section 650-39A, and shown in an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation approved by the Marlborough Conservation Commission and which has not lapsed.
Madam
So I know
Chair.
there was discussion. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just going through this, and my concern when it says the 150 feet is measured a straight line from any point of a multifamily building within the district to any point of a single-family dwelling. So it can be handled multiple ways. You can go for worst case and best case. You know, the best case is the opposite side of the building versus the opposite side of the building. So I would rather have the wording be addressed to be the closest to versus any point, because I think that just clarifies it altogether. There was some discussion before about what, you know, point to point, what do you mean by that? And I think it's important to have that clarified.
The discussions with the city solicitor and with the building inspector and Tom and Priscilla that was the intent, that it would be the closest.
Right, so change any to closest, and I'm happy camper. Okay?
So you would simply change any to the closest, so it would
Yes.
read from the closest portion of a single family.
Exactly.
Is everybody, I see Council Wagner's hand?
Madam Chair, the concern I have with that, what if there's multiple dwellings? So if you go to closest, you're limiting to the two closest ones.
No, I think this is specific to the single-family residence, so the last
There's more than one
single-family.
single-family resident, where if it's any, doesn't it measure any angle, whereas that seems limiting?
There is the closest single-family home that I think is what they're talking about, that obviously that would be what they're going from. The question is it the portion closest to this development or the portion closest to Route 85? And I would hope we're talking about the one that's facing,
Yeah.
and that's why I think from the closest portion.
Madam Chair, I believe the closest house is the one on the top right on Blazewood, and so that's where we've been measuring the lines from.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Did I see Council Perlman? Did you? No? Anybody else? Is everybody okay with the change to read from less than 150 feet from the closest portion? Do we want an official vote? Are we okay, is consensus okay to do that? All right. And the 150 feet is okay. I know it was discussed at length. It was originally 200. I think there was a sense that it wasn't far enough away. This is what I think, as you said, the building commissioner, the solicitor, and the petitioner's legal came up with. So if that's okay, we'll leave that as is. And go to page 5. So number 4 doesn't change. Number 5 is the maximum combined lot coverage, including any permitted accessory structure, shall not exceed 45% of the area of the entire SWR overlay district. Number 6 is the total number of dwelling units within the SWR overlay district shall be limited to 13 units per acre of the entire area of the entire SWR overlay district. So I had asked the solicitor about this because if you do the math of 13 acres of the area times, 23 acres of the property times 13 units per acre, you get 299 units. Yet we have 286 as the max that they can have. So I was concerned with, will they try to say, but it says we can do 299. So the solicitor's comment additional was to add to that, subject to the total number of dwelling units in the SWR overlay district not exceeding 286. So that number is again there. So I don't know if you wanted both of those in there for a specific reason. I mean, the acreage is 23.13 or 23 point something. It's not exactly 23.
Yeah, if I may, and I should have introduced myself earlier, I apologize. I'm Michael Flannery from Goulston and Storrs, counsel for the developer along with Bill. You know, this is almost superfluous. I think in the original draft, we had wanted to have like an overall density limit, and I think that has migrated into a concrete unit cap, so these should not be inconsistent, so the change you described makes sense to us. I think you can almost just eliminate this density provision if that was a simpler way to have it go.
Well, that's, I said, can we just get rid of F6 and not have it at all and just
I
keep
think that we
the
could.
number? Does that work for everybody? Just delete that whole sentence?
Madam Chair?
Counselor Doucette?
Thank you very much. So for item 6, are you talking about striking item 6 altogether or just phrasing it to just be a maximum exceeding 286 units?
I think we could delete number 6 altogether, so it's not even there.
And do we put a limit on this at any point?
I'm sorry, do we
We
what?
limit the number of, we're talking about a maximum units of 286. Is there another point in here where it says 286?
Yes, it says in the, I didn't read it
It's a
because.
I mean, it's a big
D1
enough document, I'm
D1A.
asking.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's almost-
It's on the second page, it's D1A.
D1A.
The red line.
Okay.
It's very early on, and so that's the concern is that when you get into this and that's at the beginning and you're
Okay.
looking at this.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
I
Appreciate
guess
it.
the only concern I would have would be without it, and I think the building height prevents you from trying to make a gigantic building that would then go over the 13 units per acre. So is everybody okay with deleting? All right. I think the solicitor was too. He just wondered why it was there and wanted to then confirm. All right. So G just clarifies the parking and curb cuts 65039. Now, page 6, the granting of relief from parking is within a special permit. Number H, landscaping and screening, just has a clarification. Oh, it's a spelling, it's a typo that I think was brought up. Floodplain spelled correctly. Number 7, the city council can waive any of the requirements in a special permit. And the signage is under chapter 526, but can be waived in a special permit. Number 7, page 7, the application under K. Number 2 now reads, applications for special permit and site plan review shall be reviewed with respect to the following design criteria that we read through before. That hasn't changed. New is an applicant for a special permit shall prepare and complete a balloon test to visually stimulate the height of the buildings that we had talked about at the last meeting. And number 4, concurrent with the public hearing associated with the special permit, the applicant shall make presentations to the city council and/or the departments engaging in site plan review to present the proposed architectural design and input from such bodies. And then a final building elevation will be submitted prior to the close of the public hearing on the special permit. Amendments has been changed to read major modifications to a special permit may be granted by a vote of the city council, and minor modifications to a special permit may be granted by the building commissioner. It shall be a finding of the city council not subject to dispute by the applicant whether a requested amendment to a special permit is deemed to be a major amendment or a minor one. Major or minor modifications to a site plan shall be subject to the provisions of Section 270-2 of the Marlborough City Code. In general, a minor amendment to a special permit or minor modification to a site plan shall not produce more than a material increase in the scale of the project, nor produce more than a material increase in an impact on city services. And the only other new is that the solicitor has added a L3. The city clerk is authorized to assign other numbering for the new section 65039A as deemed appropriate for sequential ordering in the zoning ordinance, and the effective date of these amendments shall be the date of their passage. And that goes through everything that we had gotten, that we reviewed at the last meeting, incorporated into this with the 2 changes from tonight. So unless you have anything else that you would like to say, I'm just going to open this up for discussion by the committee first and then other members. Yes?
If I may just add one bit of detail about how we got to the 150-foot setback from the nearest residential. After the last hearing before this committee, there were a number of discussions between members of our team and the city engineer, the building commissioner, and the conservation agent about this setback, including that I understand the city's engineer and the building commissioner actually went out and made a site visit took a look at the view of the project from the end of Blazewood. And I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding is they were, as a result of that process, comfortable with this 150-foot measurement is the right measurement for the setback.
Thank you, and that was the impression that I got from Mr. DePercio when I talked to him today. All right, committee members, comments, questions? No? Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Navin?
Sorry, Madam Chair, just to understand, because I know we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, and I want to make sure we're going in the order in which you would like. Would you like to entertain discussion before you hear motions and then discuss the motions? How would you?
I am open to either one. If somebody's ready for a motion, they can do that, and then we can discuss the motion, or we can just have general discussion first and then the motion. I kind of like option 2, personally, but. So are you ready with the motion?
That's option 2?
Yes, that's
Okay.
option, sorry.
Sure.
I should have said the latter.
Yeah, I am prepared with a motion, and then we'll offer some comments. I will make a motion to deny order number 23-100-8941, the proposed amendment to City Code Chapter 650 zoning by adding a new section to create the Sassville Way Residential Overlay District.
Councilor Wagner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've thought a lot about this, and I appreciate all the work that went into it, and it's.
Oh, sorry, before you discuss his, I need a second, or I'll second.
Second.
I thought you were going to second it. So.
Sorry, second. I'll second
Okay,
the motion.
Thank you. All right, now you can.
Sorry. Jumping the gun. So I appreciate all the effort put into this. It's a lovely project, but I'm still left with, it's a very sensitive area of land. I think about the impact to the existing community. It still feels detrimental to me in that if it has a negative impact, it's on a really sensitive piece of land and it can't be undone. We can't move ahead and get to the point where we did this and realize, oh, it's creating a big problem and nobody's going to unbuild it. So I still have a lot of concerns about it. I am concerned about the impact to the area and the existing neighborhoods. I'm concerned about there isn't really a pressing need I'm seeing like that doesn't exist anywhere in the city, and this project must exist here. So I tell you, I'm torn. I know I really support a lot of these projects. I think a lot of work's been put into this, but I have to concur with my fellow counselor, and I'm not ready to support this project at this time, so I would support the denial at the motion made.
Is there further discussion? Councilor Navin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give a couple of remarks since I made the motion and I didn't want to just leave it out there to hang. I'll start by way of thanks. First to you, Madam Chair. These things take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and I think a lot of the people here who have been engaging on this see this. Even though there's a motion to deny, we've spent a lot of time engaging on what this overlay would look like and what the language includes, and that takes a lot of work to steer this, so thank you to you, Madam Chair, to the entire team that's proposed this. You guys have also put a lot of work in, so I don't make the motion to deny lightly. You have put a lot of time communicating, listening to the residents, and understanding the concern that they have, and have tried to make modifications to do so, and so I do appreciate that. This is a very difficult area, as you well know, to propose a project, and it is an area that people have a great amount of concern, not just for the parcel of land, but for the abutting properties, not just for the residents on Blazewood, but for all the people who both live around Fort Meadow and also who enjoy using it. And people are very concerned, and I think rightfully so. We've had a lot of discussions, and I don't want to kind of belabor the points I've made throughout this process, but we have a lot of discussions before this body about what we can do to help shape the developments that come to this city. Oftentimes, we are faced with decisions where we don't get a lot of input, and we don't get to say yes or no, upright or down. This is a particular situation where the zoning that is required to be approved by the city council will dictate whether or not this can move forward. There's been a lot of discussion about what you, the developer, will do if certain problems arise when construction is done. I do not doubt that. I do not doubt that you're committed to making this project as the best project that you can in this area. The concern continues to come back to the what ifs. If these problems exist, do I think that you will work to mitigate them? Yes. But why do we start and have the problem in the first place, when this is not a permitted use, where we can continue to keep this area as it is. I recognize the fact that it is already LI and somebody could come in, but that project is not before us, and I don't think we should be negotiating against ourselves when there is not a project before us. So it comes back to me that we can continue to work to protect this land and not have these impacts that could create serious degradation to not only the parcel, the neighbors, and also, one of the gems of our city. So that, for me, did not really let me get to any other conclusion. So I want to thank you again. And Madam Chair, I'll yield the floor back to you. Thank you.
Any further comments? Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Again, I love the project. I hate the location as well. And you guys have been really good to work with. And I appreciate the openness and candor and interaction that you have had with the members of the city in putting this in place. I could think of a dozen projects where this has not happened, this type of engagement, and it has to go to say that you guys have been very good about this. But, when you guys do if this was gonna go through and there was work, as part of the land clearing that you do, there's probably ledge, you're probably gonna have to blast, and God knows what happens to the water if, because you got cold water streams in that area, and one bad explosion could disrupt that. And that's what my big concern is, because that's one of the sources for Fort Meadow. So I think that it's a serious issue, and I hope you guys can find another place to put it in Marlborough, but I think I'm going to have to vote to deny as well. My apologies. Okay.
Thank you. Committee members, comments? Councilor Landers?
I'd like to just add a quick point. I guess everybody has spent a lot of time, and I really feel concerned about the abutters and so forth. I think, in a way, Madam Chair, this has got us ready for the next developer that comes in. I think they've exposed a lot of things that I didn't know about this parcel of land. Ordinarily it looked like it would be, a nice piece of land, belongs to Boston Scientific, and they're no slouch. And location is so-so. But it certainly brought out a lot of points that I wasn't aware of and a lot of other people weren't. That being the case, someday, I'm not sure when, somebody else is going to come in. What's it, 23 acres of land? That's pretty good parcel, pretty good size in Marlborough. We don't have that much land. I mean, hell, we had trouble finding a spot for a school. We had to give up an athletic field. Senior center we had to crowd in, So it'll be very interesting. And I just know now that this is going down tonight, next Monday night, I guess. But I think it's been a lesson for all of us. And, I do appreciate what you people did. You brought up a lot of things. And Madam Chair, I think you did a wonderful job, getting this going. But I think let's keep it in the back of our mind. Someday, someone's going to come in again. So we did learn from this, and maybe we'll be more ready. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody not on the committee want to comment? Councilor Perman, I saw your hand up first.
Thank you, Chair Roby, and I want to appreciate the comments and all of the work that went into this project. I don't want to belabor the point. I know I'm not a voting member of this committee, but did just want to highlight a couple of things, even in the language of the particular document, with the purpose of the overlay being to provide an appropriate environment for a mixed-use multifamily housing development consistent with the stated economic development and environmental stewardship objectives of the city. And while I appreciate that as an aspirational goal, and certainly is something we discussed in the initial committee meeting, I don't think that the project as it currently stands would protect environmental stewardship. Certainly there's been discussion about, if another project were to come forward. I agree with Councilor Navin. I think that is short-sighted to say, another project could come forward with limited industrial. Oftentimes, those projects haven't happened. We haven't seen it for decades at this particular parcel, so I would be concerned to take bets like that with a very key parcel with the cold water streams, certainly the environmental impact being really huge and the impact on the neighborhood. And I will just also highlight, I know there were even concerns from the site plan review committee about it being mixed use and this sort of being an isolated parcel. So while, there are housing goals, at the state level, I don't think this parcel is best positioned for that specifically. And further, I would add that with the limited industrial as well, that if it had been built, certainly it wouldn't be at the size of a project like this. And, with the upcoming open space plan, I'd be excited to see. I know this was a targeted parcel for a long time, and so I would hope that that's something that the city keeps on its radar, because oftentimes we lose sight of these parcels, and then they're up for development, but it is zoned differently, and the council does have the power here with an overlay to make decisions. And so certainly that's top of mind for me, and I appreciate the work that the committee's done and of the developer as well. Thank you.
Councilor Oram?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank you for your presentations, because I've seen you at the planning board as well. But again, I think the strongest argument here is the environment. Also, the neighbors have indicated it strongly in a letter they sent to us a while back in September, beginning of September. The trails in the area, we received information on that as well. And another document that's most important are the minutes of the Conservation Commission from August 17th. Talks about the brooks, talks about the water temperature that will rise in the temperature based on the pavement and the heating of the water that drains downward. Can't argue that. And the environment is most important, and this is draining right into a reservoir, Fort Meadow Reservoir. I'm sure you're very well aware of that. With all that said, I cannot support this. I'm in the environmental field, and I don't see any way that this could be changed unless everything is a canopy and no roads, which means it would be best to preserve this land. But I want to thank you for your presentations that you provided. But in my view, as an environmentalist, and as well as a city councilor, I don't see this fitting onto this property. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Dumas, did I see your hand, or no? All right, I was looking this direction. I'll go over here. Councilor Ossing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll take a little different view on the project. I'm not big on hope. I've talked to several residents, and they hope the project gets saved, doesn't get developed. Okay, that's good. My line of business, I don't do hope. I do decisions and have stuff put in our control. I'm a big fan of having parcels put under city council purview so that we can dictate what goes in there. This parcel will preserve up to 45%. More if we want. It says up to 286 units. You don't have to put 286 units in there. And if they don't like less than 286, guess what? They won't build it. But having the opportunity or flexibility to have that control, I guess, of that parcel, I think is a big benefit to the city. And I don't want that. So other things to be aware of. We've got an MBTA Housing Act. 1,750 housing units are coming before Marlborough. We've got to put them somewhere. Right? No, we're going to have the same turnout no matter where we want to put one. All right? So it's just something to consider. So look at the value of the project coming in, and is it something that you think is worth being in the city of Marlborough? I guess I'll leave it, it's our choice. We can deny the zoning. The zoning doesn't guarantee a project goes in. It's also go through the special permit process, which you all have a nickel in, to say what you want to go there, how many units you want to go there, how it gets designed, the setbacks, right? But denying it is fine. It stays limited industrial. Something can go there. The scare taxes don't work for what's going to go there. It can. It hasn't in a while. McGee Farm, nothing's gone there in a while. Guess what? Something's there. All the parcels are going to be developed unless they're protected. That's the bottom line. But protecting it is not what's before us today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody else with comments? I don't see any, so there's always an opportunity at the council meeting. This does have to be voted on by Monday based on the 90 days going out. So I guess I don't have a whole lot of additional comments. I think the point that was made that I tried to make at the very beginning without giving a yes or no was I didn't like that it wasn't special permit, but even if special permit, if I don't want the housing, I don't want the zoning. So I will support the motion to deny. I did talk to the solicitor today. I think when the minutes of the November 30th meeting were read, I had put in them that this would be on Monday's agenda, and it's not. So I was presuming that the solicitor would put it there. When I talked to him today, his sense was he would rather have a more complete document to be on Monday's agenda. He can take the 2 changes that we made tomorrow, get it in clean form, and then send a document that will be an additional document. We'll have to suspend the rules. Hopefully, everybody will agree to do that so we can then vote on this on Monday. So the solicitor will just tweak a few things. It's basically ready to go. He needs to add the letter with the quantum of vote. So expect that document to come and be ready for the suspension for Monday. So with nothing else with this one, we've got the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't taken the vote. I have to watch myself here. So it's been moved and seconded to deny the proposed amendment to the City Code Chapter 650 zoning to create a new section by adding a new section to create Sassaville Way Residential Overlay District. The motion is to deny. Is there final chance for discussion? Councilor Orem.
Will you be including the suspension request that you just made within this vote so that it's already automatically?
It doesn't have to be
I
part
know,
of the
but
vote, so I'm just going to ask for a suspension. It will be in the report that I will read at the meeting, but...
Just so it's documented, so thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, which is to deny, so a yes vote will carry the motion to deny. All those in favor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And all those not in favor is, I got to make sure I say it. All right, so the motion carries to deny 5-0. I will report that out on Monday. We'll get the suspension for the document and the vote of the council. So thank you very much for your time tonight and all your work that you've done. All right, Councilor Orem, you were not here when we started this meeting. I had suggested that we would take up the retirement community and then Red Springs so that you didn't have to sit around and wait. And then when you weren't here, we were going to take up Red Springs. So
Well, thank you,
we will
Madam
go
Chair,
backwards. Next item on the agenda will be order number 23-100-8964. I'll wait a few minutes for them to leave and the new group to come in. Yes, so Robin Hill Street people, if you want to come forward, you're welcome to take a chair at the table or the other chairs. I've got to switch my packets here. All right, are we all ready? So for this order, number 23-100-8964, the proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650 zoning to amend Section 22, Retirement Community Overlay Districts to include map 39, parcels 5 and 26B located on Robin Hill Street, currently located in the LI District to accommodate an over 55 community combining both townhouse and multifamily components for a new condominium ownership neighborhood. So this packet, everybody has the original language of the order dated August 21st, 2023, along with the August 16th letter from Attorney Falk, the minutes of the council's October 23rd public hearing, a November 9th letter from Attorney Falk with the proposed revisions to the overlay district, the council order filing the planning board's favorable recommendation, which I will read. Dated November 21st from Sean Fay Chair regarding the proposed zoning amendment retirement community overlay districts. Nope, I'm sorry, that's not the right letter. I want this letter. Council President Michael Ossing regarding Council Order 23-100-8964, proposed amendment to Chapter 650 zoning. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, at its regularly scheduled meeting on 11/27/23, the board took the following action regarding the above referenced council order. On a motion by Mr. Russ, seconded by Dr. Finby, the board voted to send a negative recommendation to the City Council on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment. Yea, Finby, Fortin, Hughes, LaForce, LaVenture, and Russ. Nay, Fay. Motion carried 6. That can't be right. It looked like it carried, but I will question the vote. The board provided the following reasons in reaching its recommendation. The consensus of the board was that a change in zoning to allow residential development of the proposed site would be the least impactful development option and one that is more consistent with the character of the surrounding neighborhood. However, the board was concerned about the impact from a traffic perspective, specifically because the roadway cannot be widened. In the board's opinion, the developer established that the zoning amendment would impact the neighborhood less than a commercial development, but argued the proposed development could negatively impact its abutters due to the height of the buildings in close proximity to the single-family neighborhood. In the planning board's opinion, the developer established that the proposed zoning amendment would benefit the city and that it provided a use not permitted elsewhere, but determined that the benefit would only be sufficient if the proposed development had less density, more screening, and lower building height. Without a comprehensive plan for all parcels throughout the city potentially impacted by the proposal, the board could not recommend a zoning amendment that would be applicable citywide and stated a preference for a proposal that would cover only the proposed development site. If the council sees fit to approve the zoning amendment, the planning board suggests the following items be considered in addition to the above listed items: more extensive definition of allowable building dimension and height restrictions, providing an amenity plan, and considering granting public access to these amenities. We also received Attorney Falk's red-lined version of the document. I do have another letter that I wanted to at least mention. I don't know that I have to read all of it. The planning board had sent a request of the solicitor for a ruling on whether the initiation of the above referenced proposal to amend the zoning ordinance complies with the requirements in MGL Chapter 48, Section 5. And his answer was that it was the question includes two aspects. Let's see, I should have highlighted where his ruling is. In this case, the initial submittal letter to the City Council dated September 7th, 2023 states that the owner of this land requests that the City Council consider amending the zoning map and text of an overlay district. The submittal includes an authorization signed by the apparent landowner that would be affected by the proposed amendments to include the owner's property in an overlay district and amend the text of the same overlay district. Accordingly, in my opinion, the petition is presented by both the individual owner of land that would be affected by the zoning change and the prospective purchaser. So this is really at the committee level for the first time. We had our public hearing, it's gone through the planning board, they had their public hearing, we have their input. So I'm going to let Attorney Falk introduce who he has here and let him open up comments. We sort of have a timeline on this also, so we can go into January. But if we can get this done sooner, we do have a December 5th meeting already set up. We can continue this till then to kind of be able to go through a lot of the detail of the zoning language, if that would be a preference for this committee, since it's already 8:30 and we have one more to go. So I'll let Attorney Falk begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and for the record, Brian Falk from Myrick O'Connell, here representing Pulte Homes of New England, LLC, home builder based in Westboro. Pulte is looking to buy these parcels off of Robin Hill Street from the owner, Denali Bell, LLC, which has authorized this zoning amendment. So with me from Pulte's Westboro office, Mark Mastriani and Essex Petrie. And we also have our transportation engineer, Bob Michaud, from MDM Transportation in Marlborough, in case you have specific questions about the transportation impacts. We also have our engineer, Matt Leidner, here if there are questions specific to site layout. Even though we're at the zoning amendment level, we do have a concept plan that we can talk about. As the chair mentioned, this is both a zoning map amendment to allow retirement community overlay at these parcels on Robin Hill Street. And we're also seeking some amendments to the retirement community overlay district so that there could be a mix of townhomes and multifamily buildings at the site. Currently, retirement community can only be townhome or multifamily, not a combination of the two. And we think that mix, which has worked well for Pulte and other locations nearby, would work well at this site. This would be an over 55 ownership community, not rental. Geared towards empty nesters in Marlborough and surrounding towns looking to downsize while continuing to be homeowners. As was mentioned, the property is zoned limited industrial. From our perspective, the variety of commercial uses that could go there, and including daycare centers, would be inappropriate in this area. We think residential is a better use of the parcel. It's a residential area, and this happens to be the only residential use that is allowed in the limited industrial district. So we're consistent with the zoning ordinance. This is the one residential use that's allowed with a zoning map amendment, and we're looking for some tweaks to the zoning to allow a combination of housing types here, which we think would be beneficial. I mentioned that Bob Michaud, our transportation engineer, is here. In addition to the materials that you have, we have a preliminary memo from Bob. Not a traffic study, not a traffic report, but his initial comments on his analysis of the roadway. And his conclusions, and it was mentioned in the planning board memo, was that our use would generate fewer trips on Robin Hill Street than any of the likely as-of-right limited industrial uses. Our use would also generate about half of the current trips that are generated by the Hillside School nearby. Hillside School actually accounts for half of all peak trips on this road right now. So an expansion of that school or another similar type of use would actually have a much worse impact on traffic than our proposal. Again, I mentioned we believe that the as-of-right uses and limited industrial uses are not great for this site. I think this would be an improvement. Our estimate, and we mentioned this during the hearings, was that this use would net approximately $1 million per year to the city, net of tax revenue, with no impact on school enrollment. As I mentioned again, this is an ownership community, not rental. This is something I know councilors have talked about for several years. They'd like to see housing coming forward that is ownership-based rather than rental, and this certainly meets that requirement. The planning board letter that you read, Councilor Roby, the red line of the petition that I submitted to the council yesterday is intended, we hadn't seen the planning board letter yet, but we were at the meeting where they did their vote. The changes that we put forward are intended to address every single one of the planning board's comments regarding what we had put forward. And I'm happy to walk you through that. That might be helpful to the committee just to see some of the changes that we're putting forward. It would also help you see the changes to the ordinance that we're looking. So if you're amenable, I can kind of walk you through that red line that may help with guide the committee's discussion.
All right, committee, we have to go through this at some point. You want to just quickly have him go through the redlined changes, and then we can go through the whole document at a next meeting?
And Madam Chair, this is intended to be high level. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to point out what the changes are that we made from what we originally submitted and how those are responsive to the planning board's letter.
All right.
And I apologize, the pages aren't numbered. You'll have to bear with me. I didn't find a good way to number a city council order, so they aren't numbered, but we'll do our best. So on the first page, we just add the word combined. That just clarifies that with this change, this is a third option for a retirement community overlay district, a combined townhome and multifamily. The balance of the next several pages don't have any changes or revert back to prior versions of the existing ordinance. So to the bottom of that first page, again, we're just noting that a combined retirement community would be allowed in this district. It's something the planning board asked for that clarity. If you flip pages, we don't have any suggested changes. These few pages pertain to a townhouse style retirement community. We're not making changes to that section of the ordinance. Once we get into what is titled Retirement Community Multifamily RCO MF, the red lines are actually reverting back to the existing version of the ordinance. We originally proposed some tweaks to the multifamily section that would apply to what we're looking to do. Planning board was concerned that it wasn't clear enough what the dimensional controls were that would apply to our combined style. So rather than modify the multifamily, we lifted a number of elements and created a third section that addresses the combined type of community. So these red lines here are really not red lines, they're reverting back to the original version of the ordinance. Once you get to the section titled 3, Retirement Community Combined RCO DT and RCO MF, this is the new language that we're proposing. If it's in black, it was part of what we originally submitted to the council. If it's in red, it's new to you, but it's largely consistent with what is elsewhere in the document and based upon planning board requests. So just high level, these types of communities have to have an area of at least 10 acres. Our parcels have almost triple that. This is something the planning board was concerned with, that the proposal would be allowed elsewhere in the city. We're now narrowed down. This combined type of community is only permitted on our parcels. The overlay would apply to our parcels, and this is the only place in the city where this type of a community, a combined community, would be allowed. It's something the planning board was concerned with, and that's something that we've changed now. 3C is exactly the same, essentially saying that the dimensional controls applicable to the townhouse portion of this community are the same as already provided in the ordinance, so it's essentially no change. D is a recitation of what's in the existing multifamily provision. One to note is that these are only 1 and 2 bedroom units in the multifamily, no 3-bedroom units. E, this is a list of the types of services and amenities that might be available to residents of one of these communities. There was a concern raised by some of our neighbors that the list that's currently in the ordinance for multifamily was quite extensive. There were concerns about what would go there. We pared this list down quite a bit to do basic services and amenities for our residents without a whole lot else. F, this is our height limitation. We're looking for 4 stories with a maximum of 48 feet. That's something we heard from folks. We had originally proposed 4 stories. They were concerned, what does that mean? What's the total height? So we've capped that at 48 feet. G, this is a density restriction. The existing multifamily section has a 12 unit per acre density restriction, and there's no density restriction for townhomes elsewhere in the ordinance. What we're proposing is an 8 unit per acre density requirement that would apply to the entire combined community. So it's less density than the existing multifamily and an actual cap on density for townhome, which is not existent elsewhere in the ordinance right now. So stricter than what is currently in place.
And Attorney Falk, before
Yep.
you turn the page, so I don't lose track of my question, back to B, where it talks about the parcel shall not be less than 10 acres. Is that based on current acreage in the city, not taking into consideration parcels that would be combined to become 10 acres?
So this is lifted from elsewhere in the ordinance. That's the minimum requirement elsewhere in the ordinance.
Okay, but you said this was the only site in the city that this could be built on.
Correct.
Did you not state that? So
Yep.
is there potential that there could be another site if,
Only if the council amended this ordinance to add other sites. Right now, it's limited only to our parcels.
okay, thank you.
Yep. So flipping to item H, provides our setbacks. Again, this is something the planning board said, what are the setbacks gonna be? We thought it was clear that the setbacks from the townhouse would apply to the townhouse, and the setbacks and dimensional controls for multifamily would apply to the multifamily, but we pulled it out, and we're trying to be as clear as we can be. 25-foot setback from sidelines, 50 feet from the street. For townhouse, that's the existing requirements elsewhere in the ordinance. And then for multifamily, we have a 50-foot setback from exterior lot lines and a 500-foot setback from municipal public way. That's something that's not in the ordinance for multifamily right now. That would mean that any multifamilies that we did at this parcel would be 500 feet from Robin Hill Street. So much closer or very close to 290 and as far as possible from Robin Hill Street and our neighbors. This is the maximum lot coverage, 40%. That's the same elsewhere in the ordinance. We're just carrying it forward to the combined community. J, this is our minimum frontage, 250 feet. That's what's required currently for multifamily RCO. We have 375 feet, so we easily meet this requirement. K, L, M are all exactly the same as is elsewhere in the ordinance for multifamily. We're just carrying it forward. N, the only difference is this sets the maximum and minimum sizes of the units in the multifamily component. Existing is 500 minimum and 1,300 maximum. We're looking for a little bit more, 1,600 square feet based on Pulte's usual models. O is again another carry forward. It's the same as what's existing in the multifamily district. P, this is just referencing, we know we're subject to the affordable housing provisions of the ordinance. We're just making sure that's clear here by stating it so there's no mystery. We're subject to the affordable housing requirement in whatever form it takes. We're comfortable with either form that the council has, the existing 15% or the 12% that has been put forward. And then Q is language we already had in place. This is language that the city has used in most of its overlay districts, which gives the council some flexibility to modify dimensional controls if it makes sense for the project. That's been used well by the council over the years to make tweaks that don't require you to go to get a variance.
All right, so those are the comments, and I apologize, I made myself a list of things I wanted to point out, and I read from the wrong list. So I just want to make sure that within the documents for the Retirement Community Overlay District, again, the original copy was, but that's dated September 7th. Communications from various people who are not in favor of the zoning. The council's October 23rd public hearing isn't available yet. We got a document dated November 8th from Harley Rice, who's the counsel for Wayside School, sent to the planning board and the solicitor questioning the petitioner's standing, which I read his reply. Another document dated November 28th, again from Harley Rice, responding to the planning board's negative recommendation and why they believe it's appropriate. A communication today asking the council to deny the proposed zoning amendment. A copy of the opinion given by the solicitor, which I read, the planning board's recommendation, which I read. We have the MDM transportation letter, and then this document. I guess a question that comes to mind for me based on the comments from Attorney Rice are whether these changes would require a new public hearing. And I can't answer that, and I didn't really have time to go through this or ask the solicitor, but that will certainly be a question that I send to him. If he agrees that it doesn't, we can move forward, then I would assume we need another meeting, so we would add this to the letter. If he does require another public hearing, you will obviously be the first to know, and we'll go from there. I'm going to open it up to committee members for discussion. Again, this is really the first round we've had, and there have been a lot of changes made to the original document, so they were gone through quickly. Anybody with questions at this point? Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This has gone through some significant changes. I think, the idea of mixed housing, where you have, the garden-style housing, the multifamily housing units in the same development as townhouses, I'm fine for that, especially for senior living, because in many cases, you'll find people want to start living on one floor, especially as they get older. So having the ability to migrate within the same community from a townhouse to a single-floor living makes a lot of sense. That was originally being proposed back in the airport at the day, and I thought that was a great idea. So those type of changes I actually like. On the other hand, my concern is still that this is a long, meandering cul-de-sac, and I really see safety as being an issue. I don't consider traffic to be an issue. I think you guys put that to bed as far as most of the traffic going to the school down the street. But, my concern is more safety than anything else. There's a long road that goes through this property, and there's only one way in and one way out, and that's not necessarily doesn't give me a very comfortable view for this many units. So, I'm concerned about that, and I don't know how to address it, with what you currently have in place. But that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anybody? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Roby. The proposed overlay would be in my ward, Ward 4, and I just, at this very early stage, without going into anything too lengthy, I do just have to share that I have had several people reach out to me, and nobody has been in favor of the project as they had read it. I know there are some modifications. There was one individual that did think a little more favorably of it, but he also had some concerns. So I'll be in communication with my constituents as this is moving along, but as of right now, it doesn't seem to have any support. So I would be supporting my constituents. So as it stands right now, I can't really speak favorably for it or support it. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Chair Roby. I just would highlight, similarly, I know you brought it up, but I would think that the change to the language would result in a material change requiring a new public hearing. I know we need the ruling from the solicitor, but just given that it does really alter a large piece of the proposal, I just wanted to reiterate that from some of my legal knowledge. But further, I wanted to point out just, I know it's sort of reflected a little bit in the public hearing and conversations I know I've been at the planning board, just how narrow this road is and how rural of an area it really is in the city. I mean, I know that's weird to say about a place in Marlborough, but it really is very isolated. It's one of the few areas that does feel more country-like still in the city, and I don't think that the transportation analysis really took into account. I know it mentioned the low volume compared to other roadways and the low crash rate, but certainly about the inability to really widen the road, which I know is expressed in the planning board meeting, just given that it's a scenic way, you can't really add sidewalks, and any elderly individual who would be living in a housing complex like this would certainly want to walk around the neighborhood. And I know in the public hearing we had at the council level, I had brought up a similarly situated over 55 complex where people did walk and complain about the safety hazards. So I would agree with Councilor Doucette's comments that the way it's designed is very unsafe, and certainly people would want to exit their complex and they would think that the road is safe, but you really cannot even get two cars safely on the road at the same time. And if there's a truck, I have been down there and seen it firsthand. So that would be something I'd be very weary about as we move forward about the public safety impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councilor Wagner.
I want to comment that I echo those concerns as well. And I actually live in a community that's townhouses and has, it's not specifically 55, but it's an older population, and there tends to be emergency vehicles in and out a lot. And so it makes me think about, it does bother me how this one road, echoing what Councilor Doucette said, access in and out. I hadn't really thought about the walking. What Councilor Perlman said, I hear that and share those concerns as well. But thinking about how narrow that road is, thinking about if this is a community that is going to end up needing more than a typical neighborhood's emergency services, the narrow road just adds to my concern. The location is still makes me hesitant to support it.
And I will note that we have not received any communication from site plan members. That should be forthcoming. Hopefully, we would have it by the December 5th meeting, but I would think that that will be one of the comments that they will bring up. Anybody else? Oh, Councilor Orm, I saw.
You mentioned at your last statement there that site plan will be reviewing this, and I would ask that we have a professional, hopefully someone within our city that can review the traffic report. I don't know if the traffic report mentions anything about the widening of the road, which it cannot be widened. So as just mentioned by a fellow councilor, that's a concern of mine as well, that we have a very limited road based on it being a historic road. So I would just ask, Madam Chair, that this traffic report be reviewed by our professionals as well to determine what they can help us with, and they also, if they could comment on the widening of the road, which the planning board commented on already. And the other point the planning board made that concerns me is the height of the buildings. I know 48 feet was just mentioned, but again, it's proximity to other neighbors. And a last comment would be, I always listen to the ward councilors. Being a ward councilor for many years, it's not an easy job. And if your constituents, who are my constituents as an at-large councilor, are concerned, it concerns me as well. So I'll keep in touch with Councilor Brown to determine what she's hearing. And again, those are very important factors that will help me in making a decision on this project. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will make sure that site plan has a copy of the information that we received regarding traffic. I would assume that if this is approved and then a special permit was brought forth, a further traffic study would actually be done. But it's not something you're spending the time to do at this point. Any other councilors with questions or comments? There you are, Councilor Landers.
As a group, as a city council, have we ever determined or had anybody looked into, and it has nothing to do with my age now, do we have the need for more retirement homes? I'm not sure if we do or not. I mean, we got that big project going over by Assabet. I went to a couple of their open houses, and it's gonna be beautiful. I think it's, I don't know, $6,000 a month or something. It's a high end for over thing. And, we have a couple in Marlborough. Speaking of one that, talking about a narrow road, the one down on William Street, I don't like that road. I very rarely go to Southborough that way because that's a narrow road. But somewhere along the line, we have to think, do we need more retirement homes? Do we need retirement homes that have a floor? As far as the road, I'm not so sure. I know it's a scenic route. These Stowe Road's an example of a scenic route, and it's kind of tough. But if you travel west, out in that street there, from, I'm trying to think the company that originally, what's the name of the Japanese company? They've changed hands in the last year or two. But from that entrance to that company, out to Boundary Street, I'd say the street is at least 23 to 25 feet wide. From Hillside School, I guess, east to Bigelow Street, that's where it's really narrow. So somewhere along the line, that street was stretched. And somewhere along the line, I can remember, I don't know if when I first got elected or not, you know, someone wanted to put sidewalks on Stowe Road. And they, oh, no, we want to do that. But I see people walking along Stowe Road, or even Spoon Hill in my neighborhood there. As time goes on, and you got your people riding bikes, and you got your people walking their dogs, they're gonna want safer roads. So I never say never. I think we ought to look into, you know, is there a need? And, you know, where else would you put a retirement home? Nice country setting out there. It's concerning somewhat. You know, it's a greater distance for the fire department to get out there and get to the Marlborough Hospital and stuff like that. But I hate to see, in an early stage of getting involved in something like this, that I guess negative is not the right word, but you know, I can see that we're falling into a lot of stumbling blocks already. That's all, Madam Chair.
All right. I'm not seeing other hands, so I'm going to say this will remain in committee. Depending on what the solicitor gives us, we'll add it to December 5th's agenda. If that works for you, Attorney Falk. I know we had some dates you'd given us. I don't remember how far it extended, but unless you have any other comments you would like to make?
I just briefly, I just wanted to address just a few things, just to clarify. So with respect to whether we need a new hearing or not, I understand it looks like there are a lot of changes to this, but for the most part, what we've done in this red line is take sections that we're going to apply to this anyway and just put them in a new section for clarity's sake. It's almost identical language throughout. It just clarifies these are the rules that apply to a combined community. So those changes, although again, I know they look extensive, I don't think they're outside the scope of what was noticed. And the area that is affected has now gotten a lot narrower. We were originally proposing the overlay on our parcels, but this combined community, you know, could be allowed elsewhere in the city. We've now ratcheted that back a lot. So typically, when you're looking at a new hearing, it's when the change is more expansive rather than a narrowing of what the change would be, and that's what we've done here. We had a couple of questions about the roadway impacts and whether Robin Hill Street can be widened. If you take a look at the memo that Bob Michaud put together, you'll note, you know, from his perspective, this type of a use wouldn't warrant a widening, and there are a number of things that could be done along that roadway that don't impact the width of the road that would improve the baseline safety conditions considerably. This is a road that hasn't been looked at by anyone in a very long time in terms of development, and this is the type of project that can lead to improvements to the roadway, both to mitigate this project, but more importantly, to improve the baseline for others. An as-of-right project wouldn't be required to do that. This is something that the City Council could require as part of a special permit, but I would take a look at that memo because there are a number of things that Bob suggests that would be huge improvements anyway on that roadway that we've looked at. We've heard the concern both at the hearings and then tonight about single means of access and egress. We're certainly looking at that. I mentioned before the multifamily buildings would all be sprinklered. The townhouse buildings, if they're in threes, they have to be sprinklered. And quite honestly, if we're already doing that, if we had any pairs of townhouses, we would likely have those sprinklered as well. That's usually a concern of the fire department. With a cul-de-sac for single-family homes, none of the homes have sprinkler systems. These would likely all have sprinkler systems. But with 375 feet of frontage, we have other options that we could look at in terms of access and egress. So these are things that we would be looking at the zoning amendment level to deal with, but things that the City Council could condition as part of the special permit and site plan review, getting into that level of detail. Just a final note about the need for over 55 communities in Marlborough. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think there was a market for it. We know there are existing communities in Marlborough. Pulte has had a lot of success and has seen a huge demand for these, and that demand going up and up and up. So again, we think there is certainly a market for this. We wouldn't be here if we didn't.
All right, thank you. So we will see you back on December 5th, and we'll know what the solicitor says going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we'll wait a couple minutes. Attorney Falk can stay there, but we'll bring up whoever's going to be discussing Red Spring. I assume it
We
is
cut down a few trees getting ready for this meeting, huh?
somewhere in the room. Thank you. Are you here for Red Spring, or were you here from?
December 1st, we turn the heat on in here. Mike, is it December 1st we turn the heat on?
Right, take your conversations out of the room so we can go on the next one. It's appreciated. All right, we're going to continue. Thank you, Councilor Ossing. We're going to continue with our final item on the agenda tonight, order number 23-108-951, a proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650 zoning of the code to add a new section to create the Red Spring Road Overlay District. So I apologize, I stated this before. We have the original language of the order dated August 21st and the August 16th letter from Attorney Falk, the minutes of the council's October 23rd public hearing, November 9th letter from Attorney Falk with proposed revisions, the council order filing the planning board's favorable recommendation, and the November 29th email from Attorney Falk with the new redline version of their document as further amended. So let me find my letter from the planning board. November 14th, Council President Michael Ossing regarding Council Order 23-108-951. At its regularly scheduled meeting on 11/13/23, the board took the following action regarding the above referenced council order. On a motion by Mr. Russ, seconded by Dr. Fenby, the board voted to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment. The board provided the following reasons in reaching its recommendation. The developer established that the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the character of the existing neighborhood, and the zoning amendment would allow homeowners to better maintain the existing neighborhood. In the planning board's opinion, approval of the zoning amendment would not be overly burdensome to the neighbors. If the City Council sees fit to approve the zoning amendment, the planning board suggests the following. Add language to define lot frontage for lots created prior to a date to be determined. Required lot frontage is equal to 51.42 feet. The existing frontage, or round up to 52 instead of 0. For lots created on or after a date to be determined, required lot frontage is equal to 120 feet instead of 0. Add language to define lot setback for lots created prior to a date to be determined. All structures to be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the RSR district boundary line. For new structures on lots created prior to the date to be determined, all structures to be set back a minimum 30 feet from the RSR district boundary line. Add language requiring any new lots created after the date to be determined to conform with the current A2 zoning. Remove language allowing the boat club use, keeping the current boat club as pre-existing non-conforming. Add language limiting the number of structures within each specific use area. to 1 single-family house, 1 garage, non-inhabitable, and 1 shed, non-habitable, and specifically exclude bunkhouses. Add language limiting the number of dwelling units to 29 for the entire parcel, consistent with the stated opposition to further development around the reservoir by the residents of Red Spring Road during the Sassaville public hearing. Secure an agreement giving the city the right of first refusal for the 10-acre undeveloped parcel for conservation purposes. So again, this one is before the Urban Affairs Committee for the first time. There have been our public hearing, Planning Board's public hearing. I just read their letter. We also, I believe, have a new document that we got from Attorney Falk, and I think that is also up on the screen. So I'm going to let you open up, see if you have comments, if you want to go through this. We do also have with us, I think they're still here, the Building Commissioner, Tway, and Tom DePercio from Engineering. They will be coming up after you finish yours to kind of give some comments that kind of coincide with the Planning Board's recommendations. So I'll let you begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Brian Falk, Myrick O'Connell. I'm here on behalf of the Red Spring Road Condominium Association, which represents the 29 unit owners on this parcel. With me is Bob Duran, President of our Board of Trustees. So this is, of the 3 overlay districts you have, this is the one that's not intending to do anything new. Quite the opposite. We're trying to leave things alone with a little bit of permissiveness so that we can make the types of changes to these homes that others can do elsewhere. So this would just cover the Red Spring Road parcel, which is 50 acres, but as I'll get into, we're actually looking for the overlay to cover just 40 acres, not the full 50. And the goal here is, because of the way this was developed, this entire parcel and all the structures are pre-existing non-conforming. So if any changes are made, they need a special permit, I believe, from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that requires them notifying a massive abutters list and going through a process, which to our feeling, it doesn't really do the city any good other than take up time to go through an entire special permit process with a massive abutters list just to do an expansion of an existing structure. So our goal is to prevent that and to render the parcel and the structures conforming. The Planning Board recommendation, what I'd like to do, as I did with the last hearing, is just walk you through the red line, because the intent of this red line is to respond to and address most of what the Planning Board brought up in its recommendation letter. So you should have that all in front of you. This is the red line I submitted yesterday. And so obviously anything in red line is changed from what we had originally proposed to the council. First one you see is a reduction from 50 acres to 40 acres. We're referencing in Exhibit A, and you had that before you as well. This is a plan of what has been called the 10 acres. It's an area of condominium common land, not adjacent to the lake, but on the other side of Red Spring Road. There were concerns that this overlay district would allow less restrictive development on that area of land. That's not our intention, not our plan, but to take that out of the anyone's concern, we're removing that from the overlay district. So that land, which doesn't have currently have frontage on a public way, would remain in the A2 district. It wouldn't be subject to the reduced dimensional controls of the overlay district. So that is out of the overlay district. It would remain just A2. And as we mentioned many times, the intent is that that area be conveyed to the city, or conservation restriction be granted, so that it would remain permanent open space. So it would, under these changes, that would just remain A2. It wouldn't be part of the overlay. Moving down to Section D, as requested by the Planning Board, we struck Boat Club from the list of permissible uses. So the Continental Boat Club would just remain a pre-existing non-conforming use, which it currently is. It wouldn't get the blessing of zoning under this overlay district. Turning pages, so Section E1, that is actually moved up. It was formerly Section E3, so a lot of the language is the same. But one particular item I want to bring to your attention, what we have here is that this section E1 governs what can be done on a parcel in a condominium form of ownership, and it lists the various things that may be done there. You may have one principal building per exclusive use area. There's a minimum size for exclusive use areas. We don't have internal yard setbacks within those exclusive use areas, but any changes within those areas need the approval of the condominium board of trustees. But most importantly is the last item, number 4, or Romanet 4, which is a maximum number of exclusive use areas in the overlay district will be 29. That's what we currently have, and that will be the maximum by zoning. So what you're looking at and what you have now would stay the same. 29 exclusive use areas. There can be no more than one single-family home in an exclusive use area, so it's effectively a cap on both exclusive use areas and single-family homes by zoning in the portion of the overlay district that's in a condominium form of ownership. Moving down, one item the planning board requested, and we have included here, is that the setback from the exterior boundaries of the overlay district will be 30 feet. We originally proposed 15 feet. The planning board requested 30 feet, and that's what we have here. So the entire perimeter of the overlay district would have a 30-foot setback. The balance of that land right now is part of the school property, but this would we also have a 30-foot setback from the lake under the floodplain and wetlands ordinance, and that would remain the same and wouldn't be changed by this. Flipping pages, an item also requested by the planning board, sort of in a different form, but we've addressed it here, is the last item F, which is that if there are any new lots created in the overlay district, none of these reduced dimensional controls apply. They would be subject to A2 zoning. If you look at our parcel, I challenge you to find how we could possibly subdivide this parcel. We have virtually no frontage on any public ways. Red Spring Road is a private way. It's a glorified driveway. It's not easily converted to a subdivision road, but even if we were to do that, we would be subject to A2 zoning, which is the case now. So this addresses a number of the planning board concerns in terms of different rules for new lots and existing structures and new structures. This, I think, takes care of all of it. If there's any new lot formed, it's subject to A2 zoning, and again, if you look at the parcel, it's really not possible. And then Exhibit A, the changes in that section, again, reference the plan that you have, which excludes, so the overlay applies to the assessor's map 30 parcel 10, which is the full 50 acres, but we now exclude the 10 acres of common space that's shown on this Exhibit A plan.
All right, so this was originally short and sweet, so it looks like now it's a little shorter with some of the reductions. As I stated, I don't know if there'll be questions on the dimensional regulations that the planning board had commented on. I can bring Commissioner Tway up and Mr. DiPersio, and then we can focus on those, and then any other questions that people may have. All right, if you would like to join the well, please. I will also mention for the public's view, Councilor Orem has removed himself from the council seat as he has to recuse himself from this vote. Commissioner Tway?
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
As residents came in to do improvements on this property, and looking up the zoning ordinance, I could not find a conforming use. So it was zoned for single-family uses, and you have multiple single families on a single lot. So it caused an issue with a zoning enforcement aspect. So the remedy, as Attorney Paul mentioned, was to go either through a special permit process or apply for a variance either through the Zoning Board of Appeals or through City Council. And this would have kept happening over and over again, taking up resources. So wanted to kind of codify this process, especially after the condominium was created, to allow a systematic methodology for improvements and give regulatory and reliability for residents in that area and around the neighborhood and equitable development. And that was the process for it, and I appreciate all the effort you guys went through to go through this. They could have gone through several different means. They could have gone for a special permit. They took a route of doing an overlay district, which works fine. The mechanism for me is fine either way, but it allows you guys to have something that we can look at and rely upon and not have to come back time and time again to get any type of improvements done on this property. Now, if at some point in time things change and they do want to change what gets established, hopefully, then they can come back again and make adjustments to that process. So I really do appreciate going through all this effort, and hopefully you'll take good consideration in it. In reading through all the proposals, we have still some concerns with it. Overall, we like the concept, but we went on to clearly define how these exclusive use areas operate, how buildings are set within them. Even though they're not real property lines, they behave like them, and we have condominium-type developments within the city. The airport district is one. We've also had landscaper yards where they sublet spaces out, and we clearly define those areas, and I'd like to have that established, so that way everyone has a clear understanding of what the expectations are, the size limitations, et cetera. What I didn't see also was accessory buildings. There's no limitation on the size of those. So you may have a limitation of 3,000 square feet for a single-family residence, but you may have a 5,000 square foot garage or 6,000. I don't know. So those things need to be vetted out. We haven't, this is kind of like a first cut that we've seen of this, and we'd like to make sure all those elements are addressed so there's no ambiguity. So that's what I have to say tonight. Thank you. I don't know, do you want to ask questions to me, or do you want...
Does anybody have questions on that portion of this for mostly clarifying information and then his two suggestions? Councilor Doucette.
Madam Chair, thank you. Just clarification on one thing. You made a reference, is there a maximum housing size that's in here too? 3,000 square feet.
Through the chair, the single-family homes are limited to 3,000 square feet.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to be clear. Yeah, lots of documents, just want to make sure that that was raised, but he brings up some excellent points, so thank you.
All right, Mr. DiPersio, do you have further comments?
Yeah, only to say that my initial concern with the ordinance change as it was written was that there was no mention of total number of units, limit on the number of units. They've added that, which I think speaks to what they've stated as a goal, is that they want to keep the property as it is now. So once that number was there, that alleviated my main concern. I don't want to speak for the planning board. I can, if there's questions on that, I can try to decipher as I was at the meeting, but I would say that it seems like their changes have addressed the planning board's concerns too.
Other than I don't think their changes address the recommendations on lot size and lot frontage. They're still 0 for lot frontage and 0 on the minimum front, side, and rear yards, where the planning board had suggested numbers, which site plan might not have even met on, or you wouldn't have had time to really review this to get us recommendations. I know I did talk to Priscilla Ryder today from Conservation. She did have some concerns. I told her this wasn't going to be finalized tonight so that she could put her comments in writing and get them to us, but I think they were along the lot lines. She did actually kindly give me, and I just have one copy because I thought if we needed more, we could make somebody else make them, but she was given what was mentioned at the planning board, the Red Spring Shores Overlay District. She actually took it and blew it up, and within the document is actually shown, each of the houses with the exclusive use areas marked. So this could be something we could start with. It does not, you can barely see the houses in it, but they could be more clearly defined. I don't know that we need the topographical piece as much as we want the zoning and the use areas, and then we can have the discussion of whether we want to change any of those to where there's a requirement. And we can certainly have that discussion going forward. If that's something we think we might want to do, we could request the petitioner to take this document and make it bigger and better for everybody to have a copy, because I think the planning board liked the idea of making more clear, and as Commissioner Tway mentioned, if we were starting from scratch, we would have a site plan with the lot lines of each of the buildings clearly defined, or we would, like at the airport, bring them in each time a developer buys a piece of property. So with this one, we're sort of doing it backwards, but then not really doing anything with the lot line, so that's a concern of mine, and I'm not sure if anybody else has the concern. Councilor Ossing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I share that concern. That Exhibit A, I went through painful details to show the 10 acres. I will not be supporting this if it doesn't list the drawing that shows each parcel and each unit that's on it, because otherwise the commissioner has no idea where lines are. And I know you do, Mr. Duran, but it's not in a format that's available to put in as an exhibit something in this particular document. And that's what I'm concerned, because we're going to now challenge the commissioner to say, where are the lines, where are the houses, and I cannot to this day go to GIS and find that information. It's just not there. It just lists a whole bunch of stuff, and I know it's a condo, but you're asking something from the city council, and I'm still struggle with why it's not okay just to come back before us for a special permit. The only real answer I heard was it costs $1,200. Okay, sorry, I mean, those are the rules. I can't change that. Hang on, bite your tongue, you can yell at me in a minute. I want to make sure that what we're doing, we understand. I don't want it in the control of the condo association. Love all of you, but you may not be there forever, and it's the unintended consequences that I'm concerned about. I want to keep the lake in your area as it is, all right? And I'm okay with some small minor changes. It's the things that say, well, Mr. Fox, a smart guy, they figure out, hey, we can actually do this with these words now. That's what I don't want to happen. So I'm looking for that drawing that Commissioner Tway said he needs, Councilor Roby said she would like to see, and I believe belongs in the zoning change. That's all. Simple request.
President Austin, we do have that drawing. We have every shed, every garage, all the dimensions of all the houses. I don't know if we have it here tonight. Brian?
So, through the chair, the plan that you're referencing, I submitted to Priscilla Ryder a couple months ago. And that's something that we can look into ways that could be incorporated into the ordinance. I'm a little leery of memorializing those through zoning because it's a condominium association. It has complexity to it. But I understand the concerns of you're used to seeing lots, and these look like lots, although they really aren't. They're exclusive use areas. But I understand the analogy to the airport, which is also a condominium, although an industrial condominium. And that's something that the site plan committee is used to seeing because it goes to site plan committee every time it does everything. That's certainly not what we're looking to do here, and hoping that we're not going to have to do that here in terms of going to site plan committee to review changes to residential condominium exclusive use areas. But I think we can come up with a way to incorporate this plan, which clearly defines the exclusive use areas and shows the existing structures. I think there's a way to do that.
Right. And I don't think the way this is written that the homeowner would be coming back to the city council for a special permit, but you would need to go for a building permit.
Correct.
And so the commissioner is going to have to know, is there a lot line now that I can say, if we put numbers in here that the planning board has recommended, or if we create our own, say, okay, here's my exclusive use area for house number 10, and they want to put a shed in. I now know exactly where their lot is, and I know that the shed can or cannot go based on any kind of numbers that we would put in here. So I would like a document that we could add in as Exhibit B that goes along with E, dimensional requirements, that does clearly delineate where everybody is. If you have it that includes the existing structures, that would be wonderful.
Yep, we have that, and I think that's something that we can certainly accommodate.
Okay, and I saw Councilor Doucette holding his hand very...
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So, the development I live in, like the condos behind Home Depot, there's 3 different condo associations in those areas. To say that the property lines are loosey-goosey is putting it lightly. I had the situation where I added a 3-season porch to my house, so I had to get the property surveyed. And I had lots of people rolling their eyes when they came into the place to do the surveying and stuff like that. It turns out that, you know, I found surprises of where my property was laid out as part of the process. But I think, at least for reference, we could use those as examples of what we need to do as far as the level of detail that needs to be done. Because if you look at GIS for my development, the property is the whole association. They don't have the property lines for each of the houses. And if you click on it, it lists all the owners of the property, all 300 homes. So I understand the concern that Councilor Ossing has said, but I don't think that this development needs to go through anything that is, you know, not something that's been done in other developments that are similar in structure to this, because that development is all exclusive use, you know, where the property lines are. So it's a good reference point to use, that's all I'm saying.
I think it is, and I think it would also then give us clarification of exactly where the maximum number of exclusive use areas of 29 are.
Mm-hmm.
We would have it codified on a plan. Here's the 29 exclusive uses, because you're going to use it as a condominium association to then allow or disallow a homeowner to improve their property. You're going to say, nope, that's not what we want, or yes, we do, and then they'll go for a building permit. So I think...
Our engineer, Mr. Parenti, was supposed to be here tonight. He couldn't make it, but we do have that information.
Okay, so if it could be, I know this is like 9 pages, because it's big. Priscilla did blow up a smaller map. Having it big just makes it easier, and as I said, I don't think we need the GI or the topographical part of this, because it's all the lines in here sort of throws off what we really want to look at.
When we developed the opportunity to buy the Moore's property, the banks required us to do all of that work, so it's done.
That's what I understood from the comments at the planning board too. So I think that it's there.
I think so.
Makes it a whole lot easier for you to make sure that you can get it to us and we can see it. And then we can have a discussion based on maybe further comments from Ms. Ryder on whether she thinks that, if she agrees with the planning board's comments or disagrees or has other things that she would like to be put in there. I guess I quickly want to have a comment about the last one that was on there, securing an agreement, giving the city the right to first refusal.
We don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, because I know you took the 10 out, and I don't know if adding it in here is the appropriate place, or...
That's why I didn't, Madam Chair. I don't think through zoning that's something that the council can require. It's certainly our intention. But I don't think as zoning is the place to do it. I think it would have to be a separate agreement or restriction, separate from this process. That's why I didn't include it in the order, and was going to mention that.
Because I know in special permits, it's in some of that language where it's given to the Conservation Commission or something else. But I agree with, or I understand your point, and maybe that's something we can talk to the solicitor about too, to see if there can be something, an addendum to this that makes sure that you really do that part. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? So you were already on for the 5th for the other item on our agenda. Does it work for you to just keep this one on too, and we'll continue the discussion at that meeting?
Yes.
All right. So it work for everybody? We'll just keep this in committee, see what else we get. If you're sending us a smaller document, if you can email it, and then Karen can send it out to everybody so we have copies to look at. And maybe they can figure out how to, if you can make bigger copies, that's also nice to have. But all right.
Motion to adjourn.
More comments. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are adjourned at 9:22, 28:07.
Thank you very much.